So on Sunday I went to Catton Park in Staffordshire, and Catton Park is like a big stately home. They normally have a huge pheasant shoot, but a few times a year they also have a long range rifle shoot. So I went down there with my friend Tom, and I bumped into my mate Andy from my gun club, and also I met up with Neil at Racknload, and I hadn't actually physically met him in person before, so that was a good one. So what follows is what happened. So we started off on the 100-metre range, which is quite good fun actually. There's lots of like potatoes to shoot and that sort of thing, and you can see that it's just like a bank you're shooting into. It's not an organised range at all, it's just part of the estate basically, and there's a bit of rope that you can't walk past. And you can see here Tom's shooting his 44 Magnum. Now I soon discovered, as you would know, that it shoots a massive shockwave out the side where you've got the cylinder gap and the barrel, and that just happens to be right next to my ear. So bear that in mind if you're at the range. It is really antisocial, a long-barreled revolver, if you're right next to someone. And you can see here, meeting up with Neil at Racknload, and there's Tom on the right and my mate Andy on the left, who just sort of happened to be there, to be honest. And yeah, Rack's knocking up a video too, I believe. Should be hopefully available later in the week, so we will wait and see for that. Now this is the sort of the pièce de résistance, which is the really long range. And that at the moment is 350 yards, and it goes out to about 400 yards, I think. And they've got the sort of gongs there, as you can see. And there's a windsock, which I kept referring to as a T-shirt for some reason. But that gives you an idea of what the wind's doing at the other end of the range. Normally, they do have more gongs out in the field between you and that, so there's various ranges you can try. But because they've got those black beams, they couldn't do that this year. But there was one steel, right at the end of the field, which is about 200 yards, which was quite handy for the Tikka because that's what it's zeroed at. You can see here Neil having a go with it, and as you can imagine, to me, and I'm sure to most of you guys, it looks so awkward shooting left-handed, but it seems to work for him. And it really didn't take him long to, you know, start banging the steel, to be honest. I mean, we were, you know, our mate Andy got out Strelok on his mobile phone and mapped it, and he's like, yeah, it's like, what, a 13-inch drop with a 243 if it's 0 to 200 yards at 350. And so we were aiming about a quarter of the way between the top of that left steel's head and the frame at the top, and that would just bang that, what looks like to me a cat, although I'm sure it isn't supposed to be a cat, but but it hits that bang in the middle of the chest. And as I said, yeah, Neil was getting on well with it. I think if you're used to a 308 and you've not shot a 243 before, it's quite a nice cartridge to shoot, because at closer ranges, and I say closer ranges, I mean less than, say, 500 yards, it is, in my opinion, ballistically superior, because it's so much flatter, you know, you don't have as much compensation. And it's because it's softer shooting, it's, you know, it's quite nice, quite comfortable to shoot, really. Neil did bring out his 308, and he'd got some tracer rounds, which would have been great fun, but he was having some problems with it, unfortunately. He couldn't seem to get it on zero, so he kind of gave up in the end. Although, to be fair, he was worried about this 7.62 tracer ammo, because it was NATO ammo, and he was a bit worried it was going to like blow up his rifle, basically. Now you can see here me going up against him with the Tikka, and I've got Andy to the right on his Hauer rifle, and he's got quite a big scope on it, spotting for me. And really, you know, he's just like, yeah, up a bit, down a bit, left a bit. Although, to be fair, you shouldn't need to correct overly to the left and right unless you're just pulling the shot. But it really doesn't take long to get on target. And I have to say, you know, if you haven't done long-range shooting at steel before, it is so much fun. Because it's not like when you're shooting at paper where you're like really anal about it and you're just worried, oh, you know, how good's this group? Is it exactly 1 MOA or whatever? You're not worried about that. You've just got an animal-sized target, and you're like, can I hit it? And you know, if you've got 100 grains of 243, or what is it, 174 grains of 308, if you hit it, it's going to be dead, basically. So yeah, it's great fun, and you know, and then you've got someone spotting for you. You know, that's the challenge, really. You're kind of walking the shot onto the target. And you know, obviously, I've been doing this up north with Ash at Varmint Shooters UK. but we haven't quite reached out to these distances yet. We did get out to 600 yards, but that was a bit too far, to be honest. So we couldn't kind of get near it, not with my 200 yard zero. But 350 seemed quite doable. I mean, I really didn't need to hold over that much, to be honest. You know, it wasn't that difficult. I can see here Tom's beautiful 1909 Mark 1 Lee Enfield SMLE, and Neil's just poking a stripper clip into it to have a go. Now, you would think, wouldn't you, at 350 yards, that would be a bit of a challenge. And it was. I mean, to be fair, out of the shots I fired, what, 6 shots or something. I think Neil was about the same. We both like hit it once. I think Neil might have hit it twice. Well, I'm not sure actually. I have to check that. Yeah, I don't know if he did, but I'm sure he'll argue with me about that later. But yeah, it wasn't that bad. I mean, you know, if you've got someone spotting, you get that slider thing for the elevation. You just set it at the correct number for the yardage that you're going for, and pretty much you just put the sight on the target and you'll hit it. I mean, certainly windage wise, you know, we were bang on. I mean, the most off I think either of us would have been with maybe, you know, you see there, he's like almost bang in the middle of its chest there, just slightly to the right where he just pulled it a little bit. And that'll just be the trigger, because it's not a great trigger, to be honest. It's like a 2-stage and it's quite gritty with a weird wall about halfway and it's quite stiff. But we weren't more than like a couple of foot low maximum, you know, in terms of being off target. So it's surprisingly accurate. I mean, you can imagine in World War II, I mean, they developed that rifle to be accurate out to like 1,000 yards. It was supposed to be able to hit like a dinner plate sized target, which would have, I guess, represented a German's chest or, you know, whatever. And, you know, it's pretty much can do that, to be honest. I mean, even when we were off, I mean, look at that shot that Neil's a shot there, he's like a foot low. I mean, that still would have hit them in the nuts. I mean, they're not going to have a good day. So, yeah, it's a great rifle, and it's surprisingly accurate when you consider that rifle is, what, 108 years old now. Yeah, it's pretty formidable. And that one actually is particularly pretty because it was manufactured in 1909, just before World War I. They were still making them to quite a high standard. The front post hood, as I said, for instance, is very nicely finished, and all the edges have been smoothed off nicely, and the wood's a bit nicer, and everything's just a bit nicer. Once the war started, as you can imagine, you know, there's World War going on, they're just like banging out as many rifles as they possibly can. So the build quality went down quite considerably, and if you look at World War I or World War II era Enfields, you know, they are a bit natty, and you know, they're sort of, as I said, the front post cover, for instance, is just like a square block and sort of all jagged, and the wood's not so nice, and just the edges generally are quite, you know, stiff, really. So yeah, I think it's a great rifle, and the ballistics is pretty impressive as well, because, you know, the Enfield cartridge was originally designed for black powder. Yeah, there's Neil calling me a vegetarian, weirdly. But yeah, it was designed for black powder, and because of that, it's quite big. And then when smokeless powder came in, they just obviously just kept it the same. They didn't have to rechamber all their rifles. And because of that, I'd imagine if you wanted to, you could probably load them up pretty damn hot. But in their standard configuration, I mean, we're shooting like PPU, which is like Serbian cheapo stuff, like Full Metal Jacket. And it's ballistically about the same as a 308, same sort of bullet weight, same sort of velocity. As well, when you think in World War II, the Americans are using like what the 30-06, and the Germans would have been using the 8mm Mauser, and those are both monstrously more powerful. And you might think, oh, well, that's better, but what did we develop for the NATO? We developed the 308, and the 308 is pretty much the same cartridge. So really, it's testament for the usability of that cartridge. It works really well. And as you can see here, I mean, you'll probably see in a minute, I eventually do hit the gong, and I should have really quit there at that point. You have to excuse me if you're hearing noises. I'm having to put my laptop on charge, which is really annoying. Not very professional. But as I said, it's pretty impressive.
You should give up when you've hit one.
I think this is the shot where I hit it. Let's see.
You good?
What you want anyway? What are you shooting at? The red one by the windsock.
Oh no, it isn't. That's the one I missed. After the one I hit.
Miss.
Okay, I'll put all on my head-ish.
Now, sorry about that. Now here's Neil shooting his FN pump-action rimfire. Now I have to say, this is the most fun rimfire I have ever shot. It's so much fun, and the reason it's so much fun is because it's really lightweight. It's tube fed, so it holds quite a fair few rounds. I can't remember how many now. It might have been what, 15, something like that. And what makes it so fun is that, yeah, it's not very accurate, as you can see. That's not Neil shooting. It really is quite hard to shoot, although that's probably more the sights than anything else. But what makes it so fun is you can slam fire it. And honestly, I've never giggled so much as I did when I started slam firing that rifle. You just hold the trigger down, and then as quickly as you can pump it, it'll fire. It's just brilliant. I know that Neil's, I think he's done a video on that actually, but he's bought it for his lad. And it is actually, because of the, because it's a slightly later rail at the top, so you can put a scope on it, which is, obviously really good. And I guess, it might be quite an accurate rifle. I don't know. If you put a scope on it, you might shoot a bit better with it. And because it's so light, if you've got it for your kid, it's probably ideal, really. Now you can see there, Neil's loading up with his SMK ammo, which he bangs on about as being very accurate. And I'm sure it is. But I wasn't a fan because it did feel like somebody had emptied a bottle of KY jelly over it. Because it wasn't just the lead was lubricated, the whole thing was lubricated. And it's so lubricated, it just gets all over you, honestly. I mean, I suppose it saves time because, you could go out shooting and come home ready lubed to have a go on your missus. So I suppose there is that. I suppose there is that advantage. Maybe that's why Neil likes it, I don't know. But all I know is it got all over my hands, and then of course as soon as you pick anything else up, you get grit and dirt and whatever over it. But as you can see, he wasn't hitting that much. This is the 25, that was about 25 metres, but there's different distances for the rimfire range. It was set up a bit like a little HFT range, really. But yeah, again, loads of fun. So I mean, that's Catton Park. I highly recommend it. So as you can see, we had a fantastic day. It was such beautiful surroundings, a huge stately home with no real kind of worry about the public peeking in or being in, popping up from behind a hedge or anything like that. And you can really reach out to some long distances. I think it's particularly good for people who are just hunters, who just want to turn up and pay their 25 quid, they're not a club member, they just show their FAC, and they can have a good day shooting. And it's much more relaxed than normal range shooting. You don't have the, as Neil calls them, the sort of the range Nazis who are sort of, having a go at you for shooting rapidly or whatever. They really do just let you get on with it. So if you get a chance to get down Catton Park, I'll put the dates in the description if I can find them for the next shoots. You really want to get down there. As I said, I was there, and Neil at Racknload, who I met for the first time, was there too. So yeah, we'll probably be at the next one as well if you want to meet up sometime. So, as I said, hopefully there'll be more long-range shooting to come. I know I spoke to Ash yesterday, so I might be heading up to Grimsby before too long. So, keep watching.